Welcome, everyone. Here we are at another episode of Led by Life. We're your hosts. I'm Rafaela. This is Hannah. And if you haven't been here before, then welcome. We talk about all things human design, the gene keys. We kind of let this be like our guidance of what we're here to talk about, the different experiences of life, being able to have open dialogue and conversation around the human experience. So welcome. And today we're on gene key 16. Yeah. So this one was kind of fun. This one was a lot of fun, actually. I have the 48. Hannah has the 16. So here we are, like another place in the chart where we make up a channel. And it's quite interesting when you read it and then kind of see how it might be possible that we make up like the full wave, right? I actually think that this 1648 is the channel of wavelength.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and we were just saying before, well, I was reflecting back to Rafa that I feel like the 48th, it's all about depth. It's the gate of, I know, I just looked it up a second ago. You have to remind me.
The gate of depth.
Oh, it is called the gate of depth. It's the well,
yeah.
the gate of depth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the 16 is enthusiasm, the gate of skills. And I was saying to Rafa that I really do feel like this depth in her essence, in your energy. I feel like you do have this very patient, very wise, very and I'm even thinking like observant kind of energy as well. And I note that this is a projected energy. So it is, I suppose, in a way, waiting to be invited out. So yeah, it's really fun to kind of see how these different energies present in one another.
You know,
what's your question of the 16? But yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay, so this is kind of what I was going to say, the 16th being enthusiasm and the 48th being sort of like this real deep empty, not empty, but this real deep space of being able to sort of one, the like word surrender is coming to me, but also surrender in the sense of like not knowing what can come about in that experience or that exchange. And I could see how like together we kind of make this up because I feel as if there's something about the 16th that I was reading where it needs the skill acquired within like the 16th, but I'm blanking of like what the 48th does, what it provides that allows for the skill to kind of be really pronounced.
It's sort of like a recognition and an encouragement, I think, and almost like a mentor and apprentice kind of relationship. And the way I interpreted that was like the apprentice is really talented and has all this potential and has all this enthusiasm and is really enthusiastic, but the mentor is a bit more wise and has that depth and has the ability to just kind of like encourage and nurture and hone the skills of the apprentice. That was kind of what I interpreted. Is that the bit you were talking about?
Yeah. I could see how it like for the both of us, we go back and forth in this experience. And what I was sharing with you earlier was, even though I don't have the 16th defined, I feel as if I really relate to it because the 48th is this like this fear of inadequacy. And this channel, I actually feel like this whole channel I've worked a lot with personally, as far as kind of constantly questioning my skill and my ability to work effectively with others in my career, and having to like really draw a line between where am I trying to obtain more and more information or skill to decrease this feeling of inadequacy. And I feel like this is one of the more profound experiences I've had within my chart, like things that I like in the last couple of years since coming across human design have really worked with, because I went into opening my practice, which I had never done before. And then when you're kind of putting yourself out there like that, it's this like, you're essentially putting yourself out there and, you know, selling yourself in a way, but having to share with people like your skill, what you're capable of doing. And this was coming up for me a lot in the last couple of years, and working with the idea of like not necessarily needing to be prepared for certain situations or experiences. Like I've acquired a lot of knowledge throughout school, throughout experience. And so there came a point where I had to just trust that when I was in front of somebody, that I'd be able to just dig deep into this well of wisdom, and then execute like the skill that I would turn it into my own thing. And this is where I felt like a lot of versatility would come up, which is the gift of the 16th. So I don't have the 16th, but I really feel like I've related to it so much.
I wonder if that's because it's a hanging gate. Like I wonder if the places in our chart, I have heard this before, like the places in our chart where we don't have that full channel, but there's like that hanging gate. In a way, it's like a longing for that, and it's like searching for that energy to make up the full channel, which is why you can be drawn to certain people who will complete that connection, that channel.
Yeah. And it's like the white is where you gain the wisdom, where you go through the learnings, and you know, I'm assuming eventually to like share that with others, or just for your own life lessons, I don't know. And so that's what I think you're right. Like this hanging gate, so I think this is one of them that I have come across that I feel like, wow, I feel like I could really speak on that. I could really share about that.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a similar experience with some of my hanging gates as well. Like you feel like you are familiar with that because a part of you is like aware of perhaps what's lacking or what's wanting to be, wanting to come together.
Like you've gone through a lesson, as opposed to, not that you don't go through lessons with the things that you naturally embody, the things that are the parts that are defined. But often you and I have each said like it's hard to explain. It just comes natural that you don't really have the words for it.
And sometimes it's harder to be aware of the things that come naturally to us because we just assume that everyone experiences that. Like I've really noticed my enthusiasm since becoming aware of human design. I don't think I was really aware of it before learning about this.
Really?
But I notice it in my voice now. I notice it sometimes because it is in the throat center. So it is a voice of the throat center. And I notice it now. Like I have these times where I get really enthusiastic, and I know I've apologized to you a few times, like with ideas. I get so excited about like what we could do with something. And then I have to kind of say, oh, well, there's no pressure here. Like, don't let my enthusiasm make you feel some sort of pressure, but this is just like something I'm excited about. Or yeah.
I mean, I feel like I have learned to pick, like now I can pick up on it just having built a relationship with you. And so
Yeah.
And I really I feel like for myself I really experience it when we're together, because we talk about things that are exciting to us. And so I feel like within either the things that we're doing, or when you're sharing with me the stuff that you're doing on your own or for your own business or just in life, it's like there's this higher pitch and a rapidness, like you'll speak faster, like wanting to get a lot of it out when you become enthused.
Yeah, it really like gets things going. And I think he talks about this in the, like when you move into the gift frequency of the gene key, like I think he talks about enthusiasm being like that push to get your dreams to kind of like overcome something being a pipe dream to actually like move into action.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
getting outside of your comfort zone was one of the things that was expressed. And I mean, I feel like since I've known you, I've been through this getting out of my comfort zone kind of thing, and in many ways, the podcast being one of them.
Yeah, and I think that that's really like this gift of versatility and this idea of like skills, the gate of skills in action as well, because I've really noticed like the progression of my skills over time and how I've been drawn to different things at different times. And I do really kind of get really focused on something. And he talks about this as well, like needing to really become identified with the skill in order to practice, to dedicate yourself and to practice and dedicate your energy to it. And I feel like the podcast was something that didn't feel all that scary for me because I had been kind of cultivating various skills already. So it's just a matter of like, let's just meet up and record. We don't have to worry about all the details and all the, like, how's it all going to come together? Like, we can do this. And maybe that's the enthusiasm, just being like, let's just do this.
Yeah. And not only the enthusiasm, but also allowing yourself to apply the skills that you have acquired to get you out of that well, for me, like to get me out of that comfort zone of doing something. And what came to me was, you mentioned this being a projected energy. And since we're speaking about it all, and we've talked about this before on the podcast, like this all really came about from Hannah presenting an idea, which to me felt like, okay, that was this gift being called out upon. Because sometimes, I mean, we have our process of how we go about each energy and each frequency, and what we want to talk about, and feeling like we've gone through some material. But ultimately, like each time I have to bring myself to the point where of like surrendering to the process, allowing myself to completely not know what's going to be talked about or how it's going to go, and just trusting that it's going to be what it is. And I think that this is actually where we left off, like when Hannah and I were catching up after our last recording, we talked about this sort of experience that we have of like allowing it to just sort of be without feeling like we have to be knowledgeable, perform, and each time it just turns out great.
It turns out how it needs to. And it makes me think about the idea of perfectionism, right? Like if you get overly perfectionistic and if you're getting in your head and thinking like, I don't have all the the skills, or it's not exactly perfect, then it actually just stops you from creating anything.
Right. Which he said was one of the excuses that people use. So a lot of this energy is in the Gene Keys talks about people not doing what they really love. And two excuses that people use to say why they can't is that there's not enough time, or that they don't know how to do it or something.
I'm
like
not
that.
ready.
I'm not ready. That's what it was. And you know, as we've heard before, like, you'll never know when you're ready, and that the part of the process is to learn as you go. And I didn't have that so much here, and I think that's because I just felt really confident in your confidence of being able to do this, seeing as how you've done this before. So that was kind of like reassuring for me. But yeah.
Do you know what's interesting? Like, I felt confident, but I also really struggle with that inadequacy as well. And what was really interesting to me reading about, particularly in the human design book, he talks about with the 16th, he talks, there was some part of it that talks about needing to be recognized and needing like that. And I suppose this is all about this projected energy. It's wanting to be seen, wanting to be recognized, and wanting to be invited out. And then I looked up the line that I have the 16th in, which is the fifth line. Did you have a look at it?
I did. I read it today, and I was sharing it with Travis because I just thought it was so funny.
It's so
and
funny.
he's like, well, you're going to share it and then I'll tell you.
Well, I'd love to hear your
So,
perspective.
so in the human design book, they say that, I'm mixing up my words here. Okay. Hannah has it in the fifth line. So I went to go see, like, what is this quality? What is this about? And the fifth line is called the Grinch. And I kind of laughed a little bit because, and I shared with him, and he's like, can you see Hannah being a Grinch? And I was like, yes and no, but kind of. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I just know how you feel when you get a bit Grinchy.
Explain that to me. I want to hear.
Like, you get you get annoyed. That's the only way I can describe it. Like, for me, it comes off as like you feeling annoyed at the way people are doing things.
Yeah, and in a way, like feeling annoyed that people aren't seeing that there's a better way to be doing things.
Yeah.
And it's like, and this is something I've worked with so much, and I did a lot of work with our coach, Nikki, on this, like this feeling like I have these solutions and I have these, I mean, I also have a fifth line in my profile. I'm a 2/5. So I have these like solutions and these ideas and this projection field, this projected energy of like, I can help you with this, but then getting frustrated when it's not recognized. And this is actually frustration, or it's bitterness, isn't it? Bitterness is the projector shadow. And I do, this Grinchy energy is kind of like a bitterness. But it's funny, I'll read out the fifth, the line 5, the Grinch, and it says the refusal to share in enthusiasm. And so the higher expression is a lack of confidence in the expression of skills that needs the encouragement of others. And then I won't even bother with the lower one, but I had to read this like 10 times to really understand it, because at first when I read it, I was like, oh, the Grinch, like that doesn't sound very good. So I was like, okay, well, I mean, the human design book can be very like black and white, kind of very dogmatic. And so I've really had to like sit with a lot of these different lines when it goes into that detail, that depth of how the energy presents specifically to me or specifically to you. And I was like, okay, I do get this feeling of like, well, if no one else is wanting to be a part of this, I'm just not going to do it at all. I'm just not going to share it. And I'm just going to like, nope, if you don't want to be involved, well, then let's not even bother. So that was kind of like how I feel like this Grinch energy presents in me. And so when I have the encouragement of others, when I feel like people are recognizing and seeing my skills or seeing the solutions, seeing the ways in which I can help them with their problems, I do feel that encouragement, and I do feel like it really just spurs on that enthusiasm. It's like, all right, you're going to get behind me. Let's do this together. So I feel like that's where having the support of someone like you who has the 48, who is able to like support, encourage, hone the skills can be really helpful for my process.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like the whole time you're speaking, I just have like the movie of the Grinch playing in my head. And funny story about this movie, there was a summer, one of my younger cousins was like 2 years old maybe, and I went and I babysat him for a couple weeks. But I kid you not, for like 12 days straight, he watched The Grinch. Every single day we watched The Grinch. And it's like one of my favorite movies. So as you're speaking, I haven't felt this way before, how perfectly accurate this is depicted by the persona, the character of the Grinch. Because I'm thinking about when, like, Cindy Lou goes and have you seen The Grinch?
I have, but it's making me want to watch it again because I just feel like I've forgotten so much.
Well, perfect. I think it can be watched any time of the year, but she goes and she pretty much like stands behind him, and he's all bitter about the people down in Whoville and everything, and Christmas and the spirit of Christmas and all this stuff. And she really wants him to be a part of everything. And she like encourages him, and she like gets him to be a part of like the holiday celebration where they do all these games. And he finally comes down and he does all these games with them, and he feels like really supported. And then he's like, hot shit, like he's just trying to beat everybody at everything. And when something in the festival kind of switches, I can't think of it right now, he all of a sudden he gets really offended, and he goes on this like rant of the way in which they like live their lives and the things they do, and then he burns down the whole tree. And I could see it because like on one end he's not wrong, like the way he's observing what's happening, there's a truth to it. But he's so separated from like the collective that it comes off in a way that he might be crazy. And but he's not, like, he has value in what he's saying. And so I just, yeah, it's like spot on. It's incredible. And I could see how this like would come up for you just because like I know you personally. And it's not a matter of like a judgment. It's also, I think it can be a really beautiful thing to be able to recognize where humanity can use some tweaking.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was coming to me just at the end there is like how it kind of comes off the back of the 15th that we talked about in last week. It's like, I don't even know what came to me, but it was just this, when I'm in my shadow of the 15th, I can be a bit judgy and like judge how people are behaving and living. And I suppose the same might be even in the 16th as well, the shadow frequency. But when I can feel like connected with other people and in a way supported and encouraged, it's like it can transcend that, and it can come to an acceptance, a level of like acceptance of all different behaviors.
Yeah.
And then this like enthusiasm, like, okay, let's do this together.
Well, two things. One, Richard Rudd does refer to the 16th as being like a tool to transcend to all of the gifts that can be just translated into all of the gifts that there are. Because when you come to this place of being able to utilize what you've learned in your own unique way, then you can go on to the gift of whatever frequency. That was one thing that came to me. And then the other thing that came to me was, and he talks about how they're interconnected in that sense. And I can see where for you it can jump off of another gate that we've talked about, because the 15th and the 16th are in the same circuitry. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it, because it goes it's in the logic understanding. It's collective, and it's in the logic circuit.
That's so interesting. I hadn't even
pretty sure
looked at the circuitry, like where it was, but it's in the understanding creative channel, it says.
Yes. Okay, so the understanding creative channel, maybe not the logic then. I thought it was in the logic.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, it is. Understanding is the logic.
Logic, right. Okay.
Don't doubt yourself. I was just reading, you're looking for the perfect way to express your expertise without gate 48. However, you may become self-critical and feel that you don't have the adequate depth. I was just thinking about how both of us have experienced this feeling of inadequacy, and it just presents in different ways, but yeah.
Well, one of the main things about this energy, whether it's the 16th or the 48th, whichever one you're speaking about, is here we are, we're in the collective circuit. So this energy is for the others. And I feel like it makes total sense as to why this feeling of inadequacy may come up, because essentially you're going to be meeting yourself against, and not versus, but up against others. And that can bring up so much when somebody's mirroring back for you, whether known or unknown, their experience of you. And this is why I feel like in the last couple of years, I can speak so much to the 16th and even the 48th and both of these, because going from working for somebody to working for yourself is just a whole another facet of life where you want to stand firm in your abilities, right? And you have to see that for yourself. And I've come up against this so much, like I had mentioned, that I would think maybe I should take this course, or maybe I should read this book, or I should do this thing. And that's what it talks about in the 16th, is you acquire all of these skills and techniques, but you sort of stick to this structure and you don't allow yourself to be different and essentially be versatile. And I think that this is something that I've really acquired, and I can just personally speak to myself, because I can't, I don't have the 16th. So it's not a natural thing, but my experience with it is that I can't stick to one structure. And I feel like that's what allows this gate of the 48th to really honor it and be with it, and trust that I don't have to just follow any one modality or system or procedure when I'm working with others in my, I call psychotherapy a craft, you call it a healing, whatever you want to call. To me, it's an art. And I've had to quiet a voice that has told me, you're not an expert in that thing. And you jump around too much. You don't stick to one modality, or, you're not necessarily, let's say, certified in any one technique or anything like that. And I still to this day haven't chosen one that I can just run with, because to me that just feels too much like we've talked about, in one box. And maybe it's like that's too, that in itself might even be too dogmatic for me to say, not just because I get certified in one doesn't mean I can't use all of the other techniques that I've learned. But for me, it's just like, I know that I have to just grab things here and there, whatever comes up in that moment. And I think that this is what allows me to kind of move into this sort of city of mastery. I mean, I don't know if I'm really a master at anything. It takes some time, but I feel like it could build up to that.
Mm. Well, I think I said to you earlier before we started recording this episode is that one of the things that I felt when I read the 16th was I could just kind of take a deep breath and just relax into the fact that this, like, life is a long game, and there are going to be all of these different skills and techniques and crafts that we acquire over our lifetime. And we will find through learning, through practicing, through honing those skills, that eventually we can come to this place of some sort of mastery. And so we don't need to be necessarily an expert in one thing. And I think that there are some people who are. I think that there are some people who kind of have their calling and it's just this one thing and they go into it and they master it. And I think that that's the way that they're designed to be, because they're designed to really become a master in that one thing. But if we're talking about like mastering many skills throughout our lives and drawing on many different modalities and acquiring lots of different skills and talents, like, I think for most people it's not helpful to put yourself into a box, because we are so multifaceted. And we've talked about this so much, about how uncomfortable it feels to put ourselves into a box. And I think especially as manifestors, I mean, with us both being manifestors, like, we're not here to just do one thing. We'll have many different things that source, that the universe, that God, whatever you believe in, will kind of guide us to these different urges in life. And these, I like to see them as like different chapters. And I suppose thinking about it in a way of like, this is a chapter of my life that I'm doing this thing, and this is a chapter that I'm doing this other thing. In a way, it's like that, like what Richard Rudd talks about, that practice, that dedication, that identification, because this is something we've talked about a lot as well, is like this idea of being identified with these labels and these different modalities or things that we call ourselves, titles. Like, I was really struggling with the fact that I don't think I want to be just a meditation and mindfulness teacher, because I have all these different interests and skills and talents. But perhaps it actually is helpful for my process, for me, for a period of my life, to really hone in on that skill, to do the training, to acquire that certification, to learn that skill, to practice, to put it to practice with other people, to share it with other people. And then it's like, it's not that I'm supposed to just do that one thing for the rest of my life, but that is a skill that then I take into the next chapter when I start the next project or get the next urge as a manifestor.
And something that you and I have talked about often with manifestors, and what we've come to even be reflected back to us, is that the manifestor energy is one here that creates the energy, initiates the energy, creates the new path for people then to follow if they would choose. And so it makes sense even more so why maybe for you and I, this 1648, this kind of wavelength, right? It feels like such almost an initiation to that quality, because you have to create your own way with everything that you've acquired, essentially. and it's hard because sometimes there isn't always reference. Like lately I've actually been thinking about this quite a lot lately, of how, throughout my education and throughout my experience now, like outside of school, working in the fields, practicing, getting into my profession, I have looked up to and admired different people in this field. And lately I've been thinking about how I've always sort of just grabbed a little bit from all of these different people. And I've always thought, like, I just want to bring all of them together and mold them into something that would be uniquely me. And lately I've just been thinking about different, like, I'll just share, there was a period of time where I came across Brene Brown. I always pronounce her first name wrong, but I don't know if it's Brene. I think it's Brene Brown. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came across her and I fell in love with her books. And I would, watch movies that she's put out there, documentaries and things, and looked into the things that she has studied. And I'm just like, wow, this is it. I'm like, this is it. And then throughout time, there was somebody else. So then I came across Dr. Daniel Siegel and everything that he does. And, and then I came across Joe Dispenza, and I was like thinking about everything that he does. And lately I've been really thinking about this. And to me, these are masters. They're not only just experts, but I qualify these people as being like masters. And they're just like this beautiful example of something that I would like to work towards. And I don't know where the rest of that thought was going, but I just wanted to share that because, I just feel like it's nice to be able to have sort of this idea of where I would like to take myself, but ultimately knowing that I'm going to have to put enough trust in my own path that it's going to look so uniquely different, and to run with it.
There's a few things coming up for me. The first, you're an ego manifestor. So if that's something that you want, if you look to these people and you see that and that inspires you and you're like, I want that, that is like something to follow. And it's not, you even said it, it's not that you're wanting to be exactly like each of these people and wanting to completely emulate their careers, but they're inspiring you to show you what's possible for you, that they are multifaceted, that they've had multiple different career paths and skills that they've acquired and certifications and all these different things and experience. So I think like hold on to that. And what was the other thing that came to me? Well, there was something there about, I feel like I've lost it. I don't know. I love Brene Brown. I feel like she brought me back to life when I was in a really dark place earlier this year, when I was just feeling like, what is the point? And just feeling so lost and feeling like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And I watched a few of her, I don't know why, but I just kind of got drawn to watching a few of her TED Talks on YouTube. And it really did bring me back to life because there was just so much wisdom there. And again, just hearing her journey, like she's been a researcher for 16 years or something like that. Like that is depth. That is real depth in your skills. And it's not that she's just done one thing and focused on one thing. Like there's been many different things, but like that is really inspiring to see. And again, I have this kind of impatience. I have this prima donna energy, like wanting to be where I'm somewhere that I'm not, wanting to be successful before my time. And I just have to learn to quiet that voice. But it was really inspiring. Like she really did kind of bring me back to life after when I was going through that period. The other thing that came to me, I just remembered, was like, we have to trust that we were designed exactly the way we were designed for a reason, because we're not meant to be like Brene Brown. We're not meant to be like Joe Dispenza. Like, yes, there are different things that we can draw on and learn from them, but like, you were designed uniquely the way that you are. And also, like, from a human design perspective, and also you've had so many different experiences that are only unique to you. So like, who you are and the way you were designed and the different skills that you have and experience, like, this is what's going to create something entirely new that you're dreaming up of. But this is where we have to like surrender and let go of needing to know how that's going to look, because we just can't know.
Yeah. Do you feel enthused right now for even the things that are going on in your life?
Oh, that's a good question. I felt really enthusiastic this week. I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm in a bit of an urge this week, and it's a enthusiasm to like close off this chapter of my life, because I think I've shared before that we're about to move to the country in the next few months. So in a way, it's like this enthusiasm to start packing up, to start decluttering. I love organizing, getting all these things wrapped up. But it's also this like excitement and enthusiasm for what's next.
Yeah. And
Why
I
do you
just,
ask?
well, because I was talking about like, do you feel enthused right now? Which like you were bobbing your head like you were going to say yes. But I felt as if not only you were talking to me, but you were talking to you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that often, I mean, that's true for anybody, right? But I feel like that is, that has happened often when you reflect back to me what I need to hear. You get enthused for yourself many times. And for it's just so nice to see that you have found something else to be enthused by and excited for that has nothing to do with your career, really. I mean, and you know, some parts of it I know are, but I know I've also shared with you, like, Hannah, just do what you love doing and do that. And I can reflect that back, right? And I feel like this is finally that for you. Like it's like, okay, like I'm excited to do these things, you know, pack up the house and get this transition going. And, you know, ultimately, who knows where all of that's going to come, but it doesn't really have to do with what you do for others. This is really all about you.
Well, it's interesting how, like, in a way, even just talking this out, I'm like encouraging myself. So like what we were talking about before, this need, this 16.5 in particular, like needing this encouragement. I think just even having someone like yourself to talk these things out helps to encourage me, because yeah, I'm never just like giving advice to you. It's always speaking to myself. And I'm also really enthusiastic about what we're doing here. I think that I sometimes, and I think that you do that as well. Like, I think both of us can kind of forget that we are creating something entirely new here together. And even though we haven't seen like some sort of results from it yet, because it's in its infancy, it's early days, you know, it's yet to be discovered what's going to come out of this initiation, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's sometimes, no, it is conversations like this one that propel the momentum forward.
Do you feel enthused right now?
I feel, I don't know if I would say enthused. I don't know if I'd call it enthused. I feel like very contemplative in a sense, like just a real curiosity for what's to come. And I don't, it's no coincidence to me as to like, I don't know if it's still active for you. I mean, the energy is probably still active, but it's no coincidence to me that this is sort of how I'm feeling, given that today is a full moon, the full moon in Capricorn. And complete side note, but in my birth chart, my Capricorn is the most full I think I have a lot of activation in Capricorn, and I think that's where I get this like this quality of like discipline and focus and determination and persistence with honing in on the skills that are going to lead me to mastery. Because, you know, Capricorn being, I don't know what it is that I'm trying to describe here, but I know that Capricorn is sort of this place of like work, career, I think, if I'm correct. And so for me, to have a lot of activation there, it's no wonder why I do get really enthused about like what I do as a living. And I think it's actually quite beautiful, and I won't downplay it, that I love what I do. And I've just have I've been gifted, so lovely. I don't know what I'm saying. My words are all mixed up. This tends to happen when I have too many thoughts going at once. But I'm just so honored to be able to be in a place where I love what I do and have known that for quite a while. It's not to say that it won't change, because oftentimes I think about how will it sort of manifest in its own creation of what it's going to look like. Like you were saying, these people that I've identified, they're wonderful and I can follow them as guides, but ultimately we'll have to trust my process of whatever unfolds for me. But yeah, that's one thing that I feel like, and I feel like I get pushy about it with other people sometimes when we are in the conversation of like, I'm getting to know somebody and I want to know like what they, you know, what they do for a living, like, or what's their passion. And to me, it's really like, what's their dream? Like, it's really unfortunate that most times people, one, aren't living their dream, or two, know how to do it.
Yeah, and I think this is a huge shadow in society, like he says in the shadow frequency of indifference. And so do you get sad, or do you feel for people who aren't really pursuing and following their dreams?
I do. I feel for them, but not in like not in like, I don't know if this is correct, the right term, but not in like a sympathy kind of way. Like I don't feel bad for them. I feel bad for society.
Yes. Yeah.
It always brings me back to that. And you're kind of reminding me as to like everything we're kind of talking about is really interesting and how connected it is, especially to me, because I've often wondered, and I think I might have shared this on the podcast before, like, what's the difference between psychotherapy and life coaching, and how could these two be connected, and you know, what does that look like for me? Because I believe that so again, I have like Neptune in there, which is something with like dreams, and then there's Venus in there too, and it just, there's a lot. And I've looked into this one aspect of my chart, and it's something that I've had a lot of questions about, and sometimes it brings me back to this fear of inadequacy. Like it almost gets to be like, to me, I have this really big picture in my mind and question whether I can live up to that vision.
Yeah. My enthusiasm is just wanting to say, like, you can do it. You can be a life coach already. Like, you have all the skills you need to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And maybe it is a bit naive, like, and that it does in a way feel it feels a little bit like immature, naive sometimes, this enthusiasm, this enthusiastic energy. It feels a little bit just like jovial, kind of like, just do it, you know.
But it would make sense because when people think of like their dreams, right? For some, they get off, like they go back to like, what did they want to do as a kid?
Yeah.
So I could see where you get that feeling of just, because what would you tell a kid? What would you tell a child if they said that their dream was to be XYZ? Like, you
You
would
can
tell
do
them
it.
you can do
Go
it.
for it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that takes me back to one of the other, I can't remember which one it was, but there was one of the gene keys that was all about like imagination and children having just like these big dreams and not having these limitations on what's possible. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, the other thing that came to me was I had this girl reach out to me via social media, and we ended up catching up over Zoom. She lives in the US as well, and we caught up, and it was really nice. She's getting into human design, and she has the gate 1 very prominent in her chart. And I remember her telling me like this dream she has to create a YouTube channel, and I was like, just do it. Just do it. Just start filming your day. Just start filming your life. Like, just start doing it. And I could sense the hesitation, like, oh, I don't know, and like maybe getting in her head and whatever. Like, we all have reasons why we doubt ourselves, but I think that like what we can really learn from this energy is to just like give it a go,
Mm-hmm.
to just try.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it can't hurt to just try, and you learn along the way, and you don't have to be an expert to begin anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just thought, got the real. You just kind of like summarize that so beautifully. But yeah, I'm just coming more and more to this like experience of exchanging of energy, because I feel like that's what that is, right? And who knows like what she was exchanging with you as you were exchanging some enthusiasm with her.
Yeah.
And like vice versa for you and I, like
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I'm also a manifester, and she's a generator, right? And so I would kind of see that as something for her to respond to. I'm just, as a manifester, saying like, just do it. Start, go ahead, you could do it. And then like that's in a way giving her something to respond to. I think this is, yeah, just an example of like so many different things that we can see life guiding us towards, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's like something that just came to me is like, it's still just the beginning. I mean, that's how I feel like right now. And I don't know if maybe that's what you're on the cusp of with this transition you're about to go through. Knowing like I'm still in the midst of the beginning of this transition for myself in life. And kind of starting to get more enthused by the possibility of whatever's going to happen as life continues. You know, the last couple of weeks have been doubting, questioning, just a lot of that for myself. And finally, I'm gearing more towards just remaining open to like whatever is going to unfold is going to unfold. And I don't need to have control of it. But I can take my skills and the tools and the techniques that I've learned and take those with me.
It just cut out. And I know you said something so wise and so beautiful, but hopefully the recording captures it on your end.
Yeah, hopefully.
Would you like to repeat it?
I don't even think I know if I can.
I think it was something along the lines of like just trusting.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully the replay caught it, or the
Yeah.
recording. The recording caught it on my end.
Yeah.
But yeah, so lovely. This was great.
Yeah, this is a really fun energy.
I think so.
Yeah. So what would your closing message be to anyone listening today? thinking about their dreams, what would you have to say?
I would say find someone to help keep you enthused along the way, because it might get bumpy. Like someone who can reflect back to you, like the skills that you have, the knowledge that you bring, just your uniqueness that you have to whatever process or dream that you want to embark on, because they're a really important person. I'm basically speaking to you.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Someone who
Yeah.
sees you and recognizes you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then also reminding ourselves that we're also allowed to see that in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's not arrogant, it's not egotistical,
Right.
to see your gifts and to see your talents. And this is what I would say to someone, is that, like, you are uniquely the way you are, and the world needs to see how you bring your unique skills to life.
Mm-hmm.
Don't hide your skills, don't hide your talents, and don't hide your enthusiasm. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, so lovely. That one was fantastic.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, that's it for today. If you have any feedback, or if you relate, or if this brought out some enthusiasm for you, share it with Hannah and I. We'd love to hear it. Take care.
Take care.